The Price of a Life, a story of family betrayal. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to air my family's dirty laundry on the internet, but here I am, sitting in my apartment at 2 in the morning, unable to sleep, unable to think about anything except what happened tonight. My hands are still shaking as I type this. I need to get this out because if I don't, I think I might actually lose my mind. Yeah, my name is Elara, and 4 years ago my daughter Lyra died. She was only 6 years old and had an aggressive form of acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It was the type that demanded continuous, round-the-clock care, experimental drugs, and prolonged treatment, the kind that insurance companies specialize in denying coverage for. My husband Daniel and I did everything. We maxed out credit cards, took out loans, sold our car, and started a crowdfunding campaign that barely made a dent in the astronomical bills. We were drowning, watching our little girl suffer and begging anyone who would listen for help. I remember the day I called my parents, absolutely desperate. Lyra had been in the hospital for 2 months, and we'd just found out the next phase of her treatment wasn't fully covered. We needed 40,000 euros, and we needed it fast. I was sobbing into the phone as I explained everything to my mother, Lyra's bravery, her exhaustion, and how the doctor said this was the treatment that could save her life. There was a long pause. Then my mother spoke in that cool, measured voice of hers. "Elara, you know we're on a fixed retirement income. Your father's pension isn't what we hoped it would be. We simply don't have that kind of money to spare." I pleaded. I literally got on my knees in that hospital corridor and begged. I told her we'd pay them back every cent with interest. I told her I would sign over anything they wanted. I would have sold my soul. But my father got on the line and said the same thing. They were sorry. They wished they could help, but they just couldn't afford it. They suggested we look into medical bankruptcy or talk to a social worker. When I hung up, something inside me broke. Daniel and I ended up getting the money through a combination of his parents taking out a home equity loan on their modest house and a medical financing company with an almost criminal interest rate. Lyra got her treatment, but it wasn't enough. 6 months later, my baby girl, weighing less than 25 kilos, died in my arms. The last thing she said was, "I love you, Mommy, don't be sad." How do you move on from that? The calculated betrayal. My sister Jessa, on the other hand, has 3 healthy, thriving children, Finn, Maya, and Leo. They all attend the Ashford Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in our state. Tuition runs about 30,000 euros per child per year. That's 90,000 euros annually. I knew Jessa and her husband were successful. They live in a beautiful house and drive luxury cars. I never begrudged them their fortune. Even after Lyra died, when our debt was crushing us, I never resented Jessa's perfect life. She was my sister. She sent a generic flower arrangement to Lyra's funeral and left early, citing the kids' tennis practice. For 4 years, I've been rebuilding. Daniel and I separated 18 months after Lyra died. The grief and financial ruin were too heavy a weight for us to carry together. I've been working 2 jobs to pay off the medical debt, a hollow shell of who I used to be. 2 weeks ago, everything changed. I was having coffee with my old college roommate, Chloe Davis, who works in administration at the Ashford Academy. She mentioned something in passing. "It's so wonderful that your parents are able to help Jessa with the tuition. I processed the payment from their account last week. It's such a blessing when grandparents can contribute to their grandchildren's education." I must have looked like I was having a stroke. I couldn't breathe. Finally, I managed to choke out, "What do you mean, my parents' account?" After intense pressure and my promise not to reveal my source, Chloe told me the truth. My parents had been covering the entire cost of all 3 of Jessa's kids at the academy for the past 4 years. Every semester, like clockwork, a check arrived from their joint account. 90,000 euros every year for 4 years. That is 360,000 euros. 360,000 euros for private school, while they claimed they couldn't spare 40,000 euros to save my daughter's life. The true cost of hypocrisy. Reinforced. The rage was a scorching white heat. I went through every interaction over the past 7 years, reframing everything with this horrific knowledge. They had lied. While I was watching my daughter die, while I was selling everything I owned and destroying my marriage, they were writing massive checks for my sister's kids to attend a school with a climbing wall and an expensive arts program. I also reached out to Daniel's parents, Beth and Michael, the ones who took out the mortgage. I told Beth what I'd found. "Elara," she said, tears filling her eyes, "when we took out that mortgage, we called your parents. We asked your father if they could contribute anything at all. Do you know what he said?" I shook my head, unable to speak. He said they wished they could help, but they had already overextended themselves helping Jessa with some home renovations and couldn't take on any more financial obligations. Home renovations. They told the people who mortgaged their home to help my child that they were busy paying for Jessa's new family room extension. I remembered my parents contributing €200 to Lyra's GoFundMe with a public comment saying they wished they could do more. €200, while they were paying €30,000 per child per semester. Discharged. The dinner confrontation. Yesterday, I got a text from my mother. "Sunday dinner at our house. Jessa and the kids will be here. Please come, Elara." I stared at the text, then replied, "I'll be there." I sat down at the dinner table tonight. It was so normal, so perfectly ordinary. My mother served the pot roast. Jessa talked about Maya's soccer tournament. My father discussed golf. I gave vague, one-word answers. "Elara, you seem quiet," my mother observed. "Is everything all right?" I set down my fork and looked directly at her. "Actually, Mom, I have something I need to talk to you all about." I looked at Jessa. "That's where your kids go to school, right? The Ashford Academy? Must cost a fortune." "Yes, we're very fortunate," Jessa replied, glancing at our parents. "Cancel," and I agreed. €30,000 a year per child. But you know, my friend Chloe, who works there, mentioned something interesting. She said Mom and Dad have been paying the tuition, all of it, for all 3 kids for the past 4 years. Jessa went pale. My mother's mouth opened and closed. "Do you remember 4 years ago when Lyra was sick?" I demanded, my voice rising. "When I called you, begging for €40,000. You told me you were on a fixed income. You told me you couldn't afford it." "It's not that simple, Elara," my father cut in. "Blankets how?" I challenged him. "Please explain how paying €90,000 a year for private school is more important than saving your granddaughter's life." Jessa found her voice. "Elara, I didn't know about the money for you. I swear I thought Mom and Dad were just helping me a little bit." "You saw me suffering," I screamed, standing up. "You saw what losing Lyra did to my marriage and my life. You came to her funeral in your designer clothes and left early, and you never once asked if we needed help." My mother started crying. "We thought it was too risky," she sobbed. "The doctor said there were no guarantees. The treatment might not work. At least with the school, we knew the money would be used well." "Used well?" I echoed, the words barely a whisper. "You gambled on my daughter's life because there were no guarantees? She was fighting for her life at age 6. She deserved a chance." "We couldn't afford both," my father said, standing up. "We had already committed to helping Jessa with the school. We couldn't afford both." Photographic hung there, heavy and toxic. "You chose," I said quietly. "You chose Jessa's children over mine. You chose private school over life itself." Forging, my father said the words that stopped time. Lyra was going to die anyway. The doctors gave her a 30% chance. Even with the treatment, it would have been throwing money away. The sound that came out of my just explained everything perfectly, I said, backing toward the door. Lyra's life was a bad investment. 30% odds weren't good enough for you to take a chance on your own granddaughter. I looked at them one last time. You know what the worst part is? Lyra loved you. She never knew that her own grandparents valued her less than a private school tuition. You didn't think about her, struggling to breathe. You didn't think about me, your daughter, falling apart piece by piece. Love is a verb, I said flatly, and your actions showed me exactly where Lyra ranked in your priorities. Dead last. Twigged I walked out of that house, and I haven't looked back. I've blocked all their numbers. I have no concern for their explanations or their justifications. There's nothing they can say that will make this right.